everybody, and welcome to Feeling Seen, the podcast that talks about the movies that make us feel seen. What a show we've got for you today. I am joined by the stand-up comedian, the musician, the writer, comedy writer extraordinaire. You might know him, if you know his very good comedy, as a nice guy, as a nice presence, as a gentle presence on stage, which makes it all the more delightful that he has brought us absolutely one of the most iconic screen villains of modern cinema. Take a guess, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. We are here to discuss Heath Ledger's turn as the Joker in The Dark Knight, the distillation of chaotic evil, as discussed by Josh Johnson. Did you see that coming? I hope so. Never judge a book by its cover, everybody. And then after that conversation, we're going big again, following the bigness of the Joker. I will have one quick thing to talk about before I go regarding the new movie. Maybe you know it as Triple R. Maybe you know it as its full title, Rise, Roar, Revolt. The new movie from S.S. Rajamouli out of India. We're going to get into that a little bit, but right now, let's get to it with Josh. My co-host joining me for the episode, a comedian, a writer previously for The Tonight Show with Jimmy Fallon, currently with The Daily Show with Trevor Noah, and you might have heard his mixtape, Elusive. It is a mixture of comedy and music, hip-hop performance, and perhaps you have seen his special hashtag. There are many ways you could experience Josh Johnson. Welcome to the show. Is there anything you would like to include in the intro so that people get to know you well at the start of this?
I just had an album come out with some friends called Channel Black, and it's basically a night of comedy that my friends and I did. So 4 of us comedians, and then we had interstitials in there with lesser known speeches from Black thought leaders that are sort of like a palate cleanser between each comic and stuff. So I think it's very cool, and I hope people check it out and enjoy it.
And I'm going to ask you more about your work as we go on in this conversation. But to start it off for now, what is the character in the movie that you've brought for us to talk about today? I love this.
So it's the Joker from The Dark Knight.
Look at you. What do you believe in, huh? What do you believe in?
I believe whatever doesn't kill you simply makes you stranger.
What a bold selection.
Yeah, I'm used to people thinking I'm a bit off to begin with, so why not lean into it?
Yes. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And just to cover it up top, it's one of those ones where I feel like we don't have to do a ton of explaining about it, but where do we come in with Batman in The Dark Knight? What's the sort of overview on The Dark Knight and how the Joker factors into it?
So basically, as crazy as the Joker is, and while I don't fully roll with him, murdering people or anything, there is a code that he sort of moves with and lives by that I think is actually more understanding of the human condition than a lot of people give credit for. So from the comic books, the Joker's whole mantra might not be the right word, but the sort of code that he lives by is that anybody can go crazy. It just takes one bad day, right? Like that's been a thing, that's been a theme and everything. And you really see it in The Dark Knight because he believes that everyone is a day away from being like him. And Batman and the people of Gotham, all these other people have all of these different moral codes that he thinks are a joke. And I think that even with, and sorry to spoil it if you still have not seen The Dark Knight.
You're past the statute of limitations, folks.
There's been new Batman since then. So I feel like I'm well within range to go ahead and spoil. But even with the way that the movie turns out with the 2 ships, right? I still think that those instances were 2 people both willing to speak up and do a good thing.
So, who's it gonna be? Harvey Dent's most wanted scumbag collection or the sweet and innocent civilians? You choose. Oh, And you might want to decide quickly because the people on the other boat may not be quite so noble.
We see from the onset of the situation that most of the people that have speaking roles, at least, are like, hey, blow them up over there, please. I'm not really here for this. I'm not really. And so I know that he didn't get the result that he wanted, but all in all, I think that what the Joker thinks about humanity is actually a huge relief to humanity when you try to develop your own sort of moral code. Let's say you don't live by any like Judeo-Christian or religious value,
sure,
and you're just carving it out for your life as you go. I think that it builds and breeds a lot more understanding of other people, that you yourself and all the people you come in contact with are just doing the best they can with what they have, and they're a day away from being crazy anyway. I feel like when I move through the world like that, now all of a sudden I'm like, oh yeah, even that rude guy was pretty reasonable to say that he could have lost his mind, you know?
And now you're, as I understand it, you're a longtime fan of comic books. You've I think read them most of your whole life, from what I have gathered in reading and such. Now, did you always have an affinity for the Joker in that way, or was it really something that crystallized when you watched, obviously, Heath Ledger's Academy Award-winning performance of the character in this movie specifically?
I think that Joker for me was sort of solidified because I also have to put myself back in that mindset of when it came out. I was probably like 17, 18 or something. And, you know, I had a friend once tell me that the only thing that'll ever be music to you is the music you listen to at high school. And I think that's that and some other things are also what I think sort of solidify certain opinions you have about culture and media in your life.
Yeah.
And so for me with Joker, I thought not only did Heath Ledger do a great job, but the way when you really take into consideration the things that Joker is saying, and you also, I love the Batman comics. I still read them to this day, but Batman is not really a hero. Like it's not really a hero is a strong word because his code that he has set up for himself actually leads to way more harm. Like if you pay attention to the thing, and like I was doing this. This is the other devastating thing about doing comedy in a modern age is that two comedians can have the same thought, and back in the 90s, they wouldn't even know unless they ran into each other. And now it's like I've been working on this joke for about a month, and I started doing it and was doing very well. And then sure enough, another comic who I'm friendly with had the same premise of the joke, even though he took it to different places than I did. But it was still then too close for me to continue to do my joke, especially since he put it online first. It's like, I don't want to have to justify to strangers that I didn't take something from, you know what I mean? Like, I just was like, all right, he put it out first and his premise is strong. Like, even though it's the same one as me, I liked where he took the joke.
Okay.
And so I was like, I'll just let it go. But I said all that to say I'm not going to do it in stand-up anymore. But this is the thing that I was doing that now I'm not going to do anymore. It does get hard for me as I get older to continue rooting for Batman because he's a billionaire.
Yes.
That beats the shit out of poor people. There's just no way. And I know some people get very upset when you say that, or like there are a lot of like comic book fans in the culture that are like, no, Bruce Wayne does a lot and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, yes, I understand that.
Yes.
But you have to understand, if Jeff Bezos' parents were murdered and instead of going to therapy, he bought some brass knuckles and went to the Bronx and just started doing God's work on people's faces, we would have a problem with it.
One hopes.
Yeah, and so people hate Elon. People hate Elon Musk for being so rich, but nothing looks more like a Batmobile than a Tesla, you know?
Yes.
And so if Elon got in a Tesla and just drove to Compton and started hitting people with his car, I don't know if we would be cheering for Elon to keep doing what he's doing, you know?
Driving into houses, through yards.
And you know, my thing is that I want to see movies that are about not necessarily the villains, because the villains do get their own movies sometimes. I want to see a movie about the guy who got beat up for 6 seconds in scene 3 and we never saw him again. Because that movie probably tells the story of a fairly reasonable person who was like, oh, okay, when I was born, my dad was in jail and my mom worked 2 jobs to support me and my 2 brothers. And, you know, I was going to school. I could only work part-time. So then I fell in with a bad crowd and started selling some drugs on the side to make some extra money to take care of my brothers and I and everything. And then one day when I was walking home, a guy in an alley dressed like a bat beat the living shit out of it. Like that's that movie for that guy.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
And so when you see Joker and you see what I think Christopher Nolan did a great job with in the script and in the film is that everyone underestimates, except for Alfred, everyone underestimates why Joker's doing what he's doing and what Joker believes. And I think that there's something to be said for like having a belief system that's very simple but consistent.
Right, yeah.
And I think that that's what Joker had. You don't really see Joker break his own character in that idea. Like you know, you see it sometimes in the animated series, but you don't see Joker in The Dark Knight really flip-flop about something. Like even the it still gives me chills because especially with inflation the way it is, when he burns the money,
the Tower of Money, yes.
When he burns the money, I'm like, this dude really lives that life. It's like when someone is pretending to be a tough guy and then they run into an actual tough guy.
Oh no.
And that tough guy is like, no, I'm crazy. You talk about fighting people and you get in people's faces like you want to fight people. I will hurt you.
Yeah, I have fought people today. So
I've fought people. My nose doesn't look right. That's how you should know to leave me alone right now. And I feel like that's what the money scene was for me, where I was like, oh, these aren't just platitudes. This dude is like, I do not care about anything you care about.
That's it. I feel like what I was noticing when I was watching it last night was like when Batman has him at the end as the final fight, and you know Batman has passed some like test of wills, and Joker like quips to him, he's like, "You really are uncorruptible, aren't you?"
You truly are incorruptible, aren't you? Huh? You won't kill me out of some misplaced sense of self-righteousness. And I won't kill you because you're just too much fun. I think you and I are destined to do this forever.
But in his way, the Joker is probably equally as uncorruptible. He is a corrupt force. He is terrifying. He is, as he says, an agent of chaos, but he is immovable within his own, like you said, code and set of principles. They are equally uncorruptible forces, just existing like diametrically opposed to one another in intention.
Yeah, because you look at the other villains and it's like Penguin is completely motivated by money.
Yeah.
Like you see almost all of the other Batman villains outside of maybe Riddler don't move the same way as the Joker does. They have very clear intentions. It's actually what confuses Bruce when he's approaching on the detective side of it, of like, what does he want? What's his motivation? And it's like none of the things that you think, like, this isn't a petty criminal. This is someone who has a deeply held belief that they want to spread the doctrine of. Yeah. And I see myself in that, not so much so that I believe that there is a lot of good in people, but I think that the opportunities for good are actually very limited because of the lives that we leave people to have, if that makes sense. So if you think about it, how you can be good with your money.
Yeah.
Right? So you can be a philanthropist, or you can, even if you're not a full-on philanthropist, you can give to causes, or you can make sure you don't spend money on things that harm, or, you know, whatever. once someone is below the poverty line, they actually don't have those choices. They actually don't have the ability, no matter how good of a person they are, to be good in that way, right? Then you take into account all of the suffering that we let take place in the world, like as not just as a sort of American government, but as people on a person-to-person basis. If you're just walking down the street and you see a fight, I don't know how many people rush to break that fight up. Right. Yeah. Or to check if the person winning deserves to win. Like I think most of us just mind our own business. To be able to do good is such a deliberate effort. And that's what tips the balance in that way for me with people, is that to be bad, you literally have to do nothing.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Being bad is easy, because doing nothing is a form of abdication of sort of like duty to one another.
Yeah. And then I think that a lot of people, the way that I've talked about with my friends and stuff like that is most people are neutral. So I think we all think of ourselves as good people. Sure. Everyone's like the hero of their own story in that way.
Yes.
But I think that there are definitely some bad people out there. There's almost no debate about that. There's some people who are like, you real bad.
Yeah.
And then I think that most people are a net neutral. It's just like they do some bad stuff sometimes, they do some good stuff sometimes, but for the most part, they're not dedicating their entire life and livelihood to a cause that they believe in that makes the world a better place. They want the world to be a better place, and they'll chip in every once in a while. They'll help you in the analogy. They're not going to move your whole apartment for you, but they'll like grab a lamp and make it a little easier.
Yeah.
And then there are good people. And to me, and I might be being harsh here, but I think that what constitutes a good person is what most people would call like a great and wonderful human.
I think completely agree.
Kind of just good.
I think that's like, really, that's not our baseline expectation for a good person, is what you're framing to me as like magnanimous and wonderful and going out of their way. It's like, wow, okay, bar's lower than I thought, but sure.
Yeah, it's like the same bar with dating. It's like most people have actually dated so much trash that when you're just not trash, you're a prince.
The number of conversations I've had with friends who have just gotten out of a bad relationship and they start dating again, they're like, he's so sweet. He asked me how my day is. And I'm like, let's call that the expectation and not like the aspiration here. But like, that's nice. Like, okay.
But this is a different thing too that falls in the same line of thinking, and it's why in the movie I find some of the ways that I think reflected in the movie. Because I live in this world where I believe that most people are neutral, most people are then fine.
Yeah,
like, that's fine.
Yeah, that's fine.
But because there's bad out there, and because good is so hard to come by, fine is actually amazing.
Yeah. And then it's like 6-dimensional chess we're hopping around too.
Yeah. And so to me, fine is like if there's just a lady that's nice to me. Yeah. Oh, we're in it,
Yeah, what a day.
Wow. That's incredible. And so I think that Joker's philosophy on people through if the metric that I laid out makes sense, that's kind of what I felt like he was saying the entire movie. It's like you cannot expect someone to pull themselves up by their sort of moral bootstraps when everything around them is crumbling. That doesn't make any sense, because at the best of times they live by a code that they don't really believe in, because they don't really believe. Like, most people would tell you that they are against slavery.
Yes.
But they do no background checks on anything that they buy. Like,
right, yes.
Like, and then when they find out that a very precious to them thing that they bought required some slavery.
Yeah, some factor of slavery.
They're like, look, I might not get the update then, but I need to work.
Yeah.
And so some of that ties into the thing I was saying before, where the opportunities we give people to be good, because now a company has kind of roped people in.
Well, it's like the good place. It's impossible to get into the good place.
Yes,
at this point.
yes, exactly. And so it's like we're all too interconnected, and we're all too, human to a certain degree to fall into any category of what could be seen as a great person, because then even after our greats die and people really start digging, you find out like, all right, wow, that's not great. Like like Martin Luther King is one of my heroes, but he did Coretta dirty. Like,
yeah, a flawed man.
That's a lot of cheating.
Yeah, yes.
And so we're all human, and I think that there's a default and expectation towards goodness, and it actually makes us miss and misunderstand when someone is good. Because when you actually meet a good person, we don't like good people. I don't know who likes a good person. Like Martin Luther King died one of the most hated men in America, and that was him being assassinated.
Yeah.
If you believe Jesus lived, they nailed him to a tree till he shut up. Like,
it's a tough track record for very famously good people.
And if you pay attention to the end of the movie, Batman ends up taking that same directive where it's like he's the hero we need but not the one we deserve, like that whole thing. So now the guy who didn't do anything wrong is running away. Meanwhile, the guy who said off top from scene 1 that I'm crazy is just chilling, being crazy.
Yeah.
You wanted me. Here I am.
I wanted to see what you'd do. And you didn't disappoint. You let 5 people die. Then you let Dent take your place. Even to a guy like me, that's cold.
A thing I've been wanting to ask you about, like, obviously you seem to love your job, and you seem to love doing stand-up, and a thing that I found very interesting in finding that you keep going back to is this, not only like the ability to make people laugh and share that with them on a stage, but like the ability to achieve a shared understanding with like yourself on the stage and the audience that you are speaking to, and feel like there is a connection and understanding between the two of you, when that might be something that might be more elusive to you in like one-on-one interactions, just like in off-stage life. And the Joker, I think, is it's not like, oh, he's misunderstood. Like, if you just knew him better, that's not like a, justifying murder thing. But he is a character, too, who is sort of so specifically embodied in himself that other people at the baseline, even if he's not like out there murdering people don't really know what to do with the Joker. They don't really know what to do with his whole deal. He walks into that room full of criminals, and the one thing this movie gets wrong is that Michael Jai White does not get to beat somebody's ass in this movie, and that it's not the Joker in that scene at that table. But they don't know what to make of this person whose priorities and hierarchy of need are so different from their own. They're like, wait, this guy's going to blow himself up, and he thinks he can take our money with no repercussion, and he's just going to go burn money later. I wanted to hear from you about using your work as a tool for understanding to sort of bridge that gap where the Joker chose murder, and you were like, I'm going to choose comedy.
Yeah, I mean, I think that if you can reach a shared understanding with a person, it's almost impossible to not feel their humanity. So you see this, not to change the subject at all, but you see this in other shows that are done very well, like the first couple seasons of Billions, where
great stuff.
Those two characters are so diametrically opposed, but they have the same problem that they can't walk away, they can't quit, they can't let something go. And so because of that, even as rivals, they build a partnership where their day doesn't exist without that other person. They might as well be married,
Yeah, and they're both the best at what they do, and the things that they do are opposed to one another.
Yeah, and so I think that with comedy, the way that I've tried to approach how I write is to build something that is as deeply universal as possible to increase my chances at being understood or letting people know that I understand them. Then also making sure that there's a piece of me in all of it, so that it's not just something that I'm trashing or just something that I like. Even when I am trashing it, I'll also explain that I do it. So it's not something that is just a pointing and walking away.
Yeah.
And I think that shared understanding, even if it's not a shared belief system, then leads people to a place where they understand where I'm coming from, or they can at least enjoy the show knowing that there's like a human telling all these jokes. So especially when I get to a joke they don't like, there's not a sense of you've changed on me.
Right.
I think that
Betrayal.
Yeah, we now digest. It's not just comedy. Like, comedians gripe about it a lot, and a part of me definitely gets it. But I think that it's overlooking the entire way that we consume media now to make it as if it's just comedy. People now will take an entire experience for all of the layers and richness that there are to it, and still pick out a part that they didn't like and make that the part that they remember or sticks out, or the thing that they tell people about, the thing that they leave the review about.
Sure.
And so I think that by knowing that and accepting that that's kind of how people are right now, I can also address it without talking about it necessarily. Like, I try not to get up there and be like, guys, it's a comedy show, so I'm going to say some stuff that's not. It's like, that's a little on the nose, you know?
Yeah. Do you find that you have come to a place where you can more readily achieve that sense of understanding with people, like interpersonally or out of your job, that might have been harder before, like because of what you've been able to achieve as a professional?
I mean, I still worry about one-on-one interaction. That's usually where I do the worst.
I mean, this is going great. I feel like you're lovely.
But I feel like you're also a good interviewer. So then
thanks.
you're prepared for if I'm not. Do you know what I mean? If I was the worst version of myself today, I think you'd still have some follow-up questions.
We are going to take a quick break, but don't run. We'll be right back, and we will hear more from Josh Johnson.
Hi, I'm Biz, host of One Bad Mother. Whether you're a parent or just know kids exist in the world, join us each week as we honestly share what it's like to be a parent.
I signed my stepson up for a camp that is actually in another state. I feel really stupid, and I don't think we're going to get the money back.
And then he found out that the car manual is a book about cars, so now he's reading our car manual.
So join us each week as we judge less, laugh more, and remind you that you are doing a great job. Download One Bad Mother on MaximumFun.org, and yes, there will be swears.
Hey there, beautiful people. I'm Travell Anderson.
And I'm Jared Hill. We are the hosts of Fantai, the show where we have complex and complicado conversations about the gray areas in our lives, the things that we really, really love sometimes, but also have some problematic feelings about.
Yes, we get into it all. You want to know our thoughts about Nicki Minaj and all her foolishness? We got you. You want to know our thoughts about gentrification and perhaps some positive aspects of gentrification? We get into that too. Every single Thursday, you can check us out at MaximumFun.org. Listen, you know you want it, honey, so come on and get it. Period.
Welcome back to Feeling Seen. I'm your host, Jordan Crucchiola. I am with comedian Josh Johnson, and we are picking up right where we left off, in the surprising place of talking about the overlaps in the Venn diagram of his personality and the Joker's. You said, like, people, like, that you like, people can maybe think you're kind of strange. Why? Why do people think you're strange? What is that?
I mean, I think some of it is I would equate, this is the problem with comedy and comics trying to move in the world with real people is we have the same thought processes and lines of logic as conspiracy theorists, because a conspiracy theorist and a joke writer are doing the same thing.
Wow.
They saw what everyone else saw. And they came to a wildly different conclusion all by themselves.
Yeah. And you're going to go share it with a lot of people.
Yeah. And especially when they don't like it, it just makes you talk about it more.
Right.
I definitely have been better with communication since I started doing comedy and since I got older. Like I think I was at my weirdest as a kid and like in my early 20s in Chicago and stuff. So now I feel like I can get through maybe half of my interactions.
Okay.
Unbloodied.
That sounds like a substantial improvement. You're going up. You're going up at a steep incline. Exponential growth in progress.
It's taken too long though. And so I'm only noticing the parts that still don't go well.
Yeah.
You know?
With the Joker being a chaos agent, what's your point of view on chaos? Because from what I've read, you're very exacting about your act, and comics are like this is an art and a science together. Like you seem like somebody who has approached their career with a lot of intention from very early on. Like I've read you talking about like building toward legacy and like, not wanting like clips or things that go out there to not be sort of like exactly perfect as you want them. Because that's like to build the legacy that you want, like it involves that kind of curation. So where's your Joker agent of chaos metric?
I mean, I think that I plan because I believe that it's all chaos.
Okay.
So then to that degree, I'm like, well, you should really have because you never know. Anything could happen. And then I think that also I'm not there yet in the way that I write or create, but I think that even with intention and even with very deliberate goals, there's a layer of understanding that you don't know how you're going to get there yet, and that is I think where a lot of the chaos comes in, because I'm like, maybe this joke will do well, maybe it won't, or maybe this idea that I have for a mixtape will do well or it won't, or maybe so even in all of my planning, I still lean on the side of like, the world is chaotic, and I think that any order that springs from it is actually, one of those anomalies where it's like you throw a bunch of bouncy balls in a room, and at some point on a long enough timeline, 8 of them will line up perfectly in the air. It's like, yeah, but you can't plan for that. So even if that's what I want to have happen, I have to keep creating like it's a black hole in a vacuum, because that's kind of what the internet has become.
I'm not a schemer. I try to show the schemers how pathetic their attempts to control things really are.
As far as career-wise, that's the agent of chaos thing. I think that in writing, it's starting to come out more in that I have... the more understanding that I try to build of people, the less patience that I have for deliberate misunderstanding. And so then I think that I have started saying things that no matter how well I do to describe them can be seen as more reckless of things to say, but not necessarily. There's a wild recklessness that some people talk with that I think can be harmful because they don't even know what they're trying to say. Yeah. And then there's a recklessness that it takes to, like, when you look at someone like Lenny Bruce, right? So what happens now is that you have a lot of comics who are maybe leaning or are too conservative for the general population to make them famous or to love every joke that they tell, or whatever that thing is.
Right.
But if you go back in time, there were also people that did the same thing but were too liberal. So like you look at Lenny Bruce and it's like Lenny Bruce was actually saying incredibly reckless things. They just happen to be things that most people in polite society believe now.
Right. Yeah.
So he was like speaking out against racism in a time where people were very racist, and they were like, well, what are you talking about? I don't get what's the joke? Yeah. And so that thing is a part of how you build your set, how you curate your overall catalog of work.
How does that line of thinking that you've come to at this point in your career factor into the creative process and wanting to make things that aren't necessarily just like an album of comedy, but working in various facets of things that are sort of like preoccupying you and interesting you, right? Or keeping you interested right now?
Yeah, I mean, I think that I'm trying to remember who said it, but you can either be You can either be first or you can be best, and I don't know if I'm necessarily the best, so I'll just try to be first at a lot of different things, you know? And so I think that with a lot of that comes, here are the things, when I look at Elusive or Channel Black or the stuff that I have coming out later in the year, these are things that I think it would be dope if they existed. Mm-hmm. And to my knowledge, no one else is doing it, so I figured I might as well do it. And I don't know how to do it in a way that is perfect. Like, I'm not by any means a up and coming producer, or like I write lyrics and I like music, and I want to showcase people who I think are dope. And so all that comes together with doing comedy, and when it came to Elusive, there wasn't anything like it that I had seen personally. So yes, there's like skits in 90s and early 2000s albums, but that's not quite the same as like mashing up a comedy album with a bunch of R&B and Negro spirituals and stuff. So I was like, let's see what that looks like. And then I'm not delusional enough to think that I'm not going to be wrong sooner or later, that I won't put out a project that is just like, guys, Josh, no.
Josh, no.
But I think that for the time being, and with the people that I have around me, I'm on the right track for making things that are interesting and that people will engage with if they can see themselves in. That's kind of where I come from now, is that there's a level of commercial success that's sort of a treadmill, where you can just keep doing the same thing and hopefully make more money and everything. But I think that, you know, when we're gone, all that'll be left is you know, the things that we leave in the, if you're a comic, I mean, in the art that we make and your catalog of work. And so I just want to make that catalog as like interesting as possible. And you know, the thing that we have now that's actually kind of nice in a world that's sort of leaving albums behind and going straight for playlisting and singles, and you know, this moment pops out of this entire work. It's like, that sucks for the artist, but for the actual collective masses, it's probably for the best. And I think that within that, it also takes some of the pressure off, where now every album, every mixtape doesn't have to be some insane banger. It doesn't have to be Kendrick Lamar's Damn, or, you know, and so it can exist with a couple of pieces that are remarkable, that people want to remember and that they hold on to. And I think that embracing more of that instead of fighting it is going to be how I end up making work that people remember, because comedy is also very much of the time. So no matter how iconic a comic is, so I'll give you this example. People always give nods to Richard Pryor and George Carlin, but I don't think that many people have listened to a Richard Pryor, George Carlin album.
Right, yeah.
Like this is how crazy it is when you actually go back and listen to a Richard Pryor album. So there's a joke that's sprung up in maybe 2016 that different comics who don't know each other, this isn't people like stealing, this is just genuine. It's kind of like me with my friend. It's like two people noticed something and had an idea, and then
totally,
you know, whatever.
You're reacting to the same world.
Yeah. And so it was a thing of how they're like, man, if I ever get hit by a car, if I ever get like really messed up, I'm calling an Uber to take me to the hospital, because the ambulance is $2,000. You know, like it's to the point now of being a meme online, right?
Yes.
In 1974, I could be wrong about the year, Richard Pryor told a joke where he was like, you know, because nobody wants to come to the hood. You know, cops don't want to come to the hood. Ambulance don't want to come to the hood. If I get shot, I'm hailing a cab.
Okay.
And so you're like, wow. So in 1970, Uber wasn't a thing yet, whatever. Like, but the sentiment behind the joke was created in 74 by like one of the most iconic comics of all time.
Yeah.
And somehow everybody missed it. You know? And I think that they missed it because you know, after a while you become a folklore of yourself.
Yeah, yeah.
So that's another part of what I mean, where I was like, I have to accept that there might be a certain amount of time that everything that I make exists. And I don't know if you have to check back to see if I want to like be remembered or not. I don't know if that's like a huge goal or not. I won't know. So it's not a huge deal. But I think that it's interesting that like the only thing that will really outlive you are the ideas that you left behind. And so I think that's why people with very interesting and iconic ideas get to stick around.
Well, and you know, to get back to the conceit of the conversation, like that, our modern lore is superheroes, is comics, and it's exploded in a 4-quadrant way, and it maintains that stature in a way that kind of nothing else does in the post monoculture, in the sort of fractured cultural landscape that we live in now. And what do you think that it is that endures so much about, like, why do we always have to have, in every iteration of the Batman, have to have an iteration of the Joker? Why does that keep calling to the people who make these things and to the people who want to see these movies? I know there could be Joker burnout happening. I know the Barry Keoghan clip from the Batman that was cut. There's people like, maybe I'm ready for a little something different here. But at the same time, we know he's coming back. The Joker's coming back again, goddammit. Why is that? Yeah,
I mean, I think that one of the reasons we're so obsessed with superheroes now, to me, is that we don't believe in a bunch of gods anymore.
Right, so, okay.
So we tell ourselves and each other stories through these hyperbolic characters that are sort of blown up experiences of what people might do, you know? And I think that because the Joker is like the antithesis of Batman, and because everything that Batman believes and says he's trying to do stands in direct conflict with letting the Joker live every time.
Yeah.
I think that's the easiest. It's literally how we debate, you know? Someone will have a great point, but any counterpoint to that point, no matter how beat to death it is, will be the first thing that people say to sort of undercut the other person's point. And I think that's what the Joker does for Batman, because the Batman's right about the Penguin. Batman's right about just about everybody except maybe like Riddler, Joker, and maybe Poison Ivy. Like, when you think about Poison Ivy, it's just like an environmentalist that's like,
yeah, she's like an eco-activist.
Yeah. Which, how wrong is she? Like,
yeah, really, if you watch Batman and Robin now, Uma Thurman's performance, which is A, incredible pulp, and B, it is entirely like, we must take down the Bat and his sidekick because they are extensions of the police state, and we cannot allow them to exist when the police state is wrong. It's like, I mean, yeah, Poison Ivy, that's
yeah.
You're like for the environment and opposed to state violence. Yeah.
I mean, I would also be against a billionaire volunteer cop. That does not sound like a dope time for anybody but him.
No, you're really right. And I guess my last question would be that if, you know, feeling any sense of identification with the Joker and certain, like, you know, certain philosophical approaches, not the murder, not necessarily the sociopathy, but like, because Joker exists so one-to-one in opposition to Batman, like they are the dark and they are the dark and the light. And as Joker says, like in the end of Dark Knight, he's like, I would kill you, but you're just too much fun. Like, he doesn't want to be in a world without Batman, and Batman can't kill the Joker. And so in effect, the Batman can't live in a world without Joker either. What is your opposition? Do you have an oppositional force? Do you have a Batman to your Joker?
Yeah, just people who suck.
Okay.
Like, people, like they're just people who this is the sad thing to me, and it does make me very sad in life, is that no one should be left to feel like a loser. Mm-hmm. I think that it's a very it's a tough world as it stands, and everyone's doing the best they can with what they have. But the tragedy is that a lot of people will choose to be losers. Mm-hmm. A lot of people will choose to be shitty when they could be kind. A lot of people will choose to stand in the way of something when they could just let it be. Mm-hmm. And that thing is I'm almost being a hypocrite, because I should also just let them be.
Sure.
But I can't, and I think that when I
can't
make
really
stuff,
either, so I can't hold that against you.
Yeah, it's like I think that what I make, even though it's to win them over and to hopefully make them not suck, I also make it at them, because for anyone that's like, oh, why would you do that? That's dumb, or that looks dumb, you know, because I want to do everything. So, you know, like right now, the past 2 years, the focus has been on like comedy and music, but I also want to make clothes, and I want to like do art and everything. So there's a sense out there, and I'm not even saying people are hitting me up, DMing me, saying it to me. I'm just saying they're saying it to people that are like me, that want to do something that's not really in their purview, because you spend your whole life getting good at ideally one or two things, and then anything outside of that, people are like, why would you do that? You're this.
Yeah, you're this. I understand you this way. Why aren't you this way?
Yeah, and so I think that in the end, it's not just for me. It's for anyone who's been told, like, no, you're a lawyer, you shouldn't do comedy, or whatever that thing is. Because I don't know if that's how any of us actually have a better life, by just sticking to the thing that we're good. It's great to be good at something, and I hope everyone finds the thing they're good at. But I think that it's very important to also do something that you're not good at and try to make a practice of being better at it. And so I think that those people that would sort of shit on that are kind of like, to me, I think they think they're being a Batman. They're like helping because they're like, no, you're not good at it, so I'm saving you time. You're not wasting your time, and you're not disappointed. And it's like, you're actually just like being a coward in a sense, where I know you don't want to try anything, but I want to give some things a shot.
Well, I'm glad you're really good at comedy, Josh, and that you found that, because we all benefit from it. But I'm really excited for you that you're going to try other things, because that's great.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully it is.
Hopefully,
I may send you a jacket, and you're like, I would never wear this. This is insane.
If you send me anything, I will wear it, and I will tell you about it, and I will be like, this effort is so worthy, and we should honor that.
That's very kind, and I promise not to hold you to it. I think that there may come a day where we even do, another episode, and I'm wearing something that I made, and you're like, that's a bold that's brave.
Right.
You're brave.
we should all aspire to be brave. And thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me today, Josh. I really appreciate you doing this. And is there anything else you want to alert people to? You said you have work coming later this year. Maybe that can't be named yet. Any other place that you want to direct the people to your stuff?
Sure. If you want to follow live dates where I'm going to be touring. I also do a podcast called The Josh Johnson Show, and if you want to follow me on any of the socials to see where I'm going to be touring, I'm at Josh Johnson Comedy on pretty much everything: Instagram, TikTok, YouTube. At Josh Johnson on Twitter, because I got in early.
You got Josh Johnson. You ran the table on Josh Johnson.
Yeah, as hard as I could. And yeah, I appreciate you having me so much. This meant a lot to talk to you, so I'm glad you had me on. I appreciate you.
Thank you so much, Josh. And we did it. Good job.
Yeah, we're gonna live forever.
I hope you enjoyed listening to that conversation anywhere near as much as I enjoyed having it. Thank you again to Josh Johnson. Look for his mixtape Elusive, or his newest release Channel Black, or the podcast he does with Logan Nielsen, The Josh Johnson Show, or whatever project he's tackling next, because he's a man of many pursuits, as we can now be sure of. So let's keep an eye out for more from Josh Johnson. One more quick thing before I go today. Let's talk a little bit about RRR, Triple R, Rise, Roar, Revolt. If you are part of Action Twitter, if you know anybody on Action Twitter, we've been waiting. I think the first time I showed somebody this trailer and was like, oh my God, this movie is coming out, I have to see it, was before Christmas. So it was supposed to come out sooner, and then it got pushed, but now it is finally here. It is playing here in the States. I am an AMC A-lister. I am not paid to say that, but it is the best subscription service I had, so I'm going to say it. And yet I still had to shell out $25 for the privilege of seeing this film. But guess what, everybody? Guess what? It's worth it. This movie's 3 hours long. You're paying for the time. I went with a friend who has never watched an Indian action spectacle before, And we walked out and he was like, how am I going to go to bed now? Like, he was buzzing about this. We sat down and I was like, there better be like a 6-minute musical interlude in this movie about the love of two male friends. And guess what? It was at least 6 minutes, might have been 10 minutes. I got exactly what I asked for. And that was just one of the musical numbers. I want everybody to see this movie because if you're out there and maybe you like big budget, big spectacle action movies, but maybe you are burnt out on the superhero train, which is the predominant vehicle through which we get to see big spectacle action. It's Bond or it's Mission Impossible or it's DC Marvel and the like. But if you are looking for an antidote to that is original stories with every bit of the sincerity of a Fast and the Furious movie and the bombast of a late stage Marvel Ultra ensemble, you have got to dig into Indian action cinema. And not, FYI guys, not every Indian film is a Bollywood film. So just because it's out of India, that doesn't make it Bollywood. This is a Telugu language film. There are Tamil language films. There are Hindi language films. They have different market identifiers attached to them. RRR is the next film from S.S. Rajamouli, who brought you the 2-part epic Bahubali, the beginning and the conclusion, which you can watch on Netflix. Between those two films and now RRR, if you want to spend about 9 hours watching the biggest, craziest action spectacular you can imagine, with close-up shots of men screaming in the faces of tigers, with songs and dance devoted to the power of platonic male friendship, with all the bullet time of people jumping through water and fire you could ever want to experience in one film at one time. I should tell you, RRR is a period piece. It is set around New Delhi. The white colonizers, the white evil bastard colonizers, have kidnapped a little girl from a community of people living in the jungle. They have taken her to live in their civilized life in their big gubernatorial home in Delhi. And there is a man, Beam, who is tasked with protecting this village of people. And it is his job to make sure that if a lamb is taken from the herd, he is responsible for bringing the lamb back to safety. So while he is setting out on his mission to rescue his sister, he comes into contact with all-star super cop, the sexiest man you've seen this month, Ram, and their colliding present where he is a police officer protecting the crown that is occupying India while he befriends this man from a tribe living in the jungle, and they become basically soulmates without knowing the truth of one another. And I'm not going to spoil for you the backstories of either of these men, because you've got to go on that 3-hour adventure to find out. You have to go on all the ups and downs of this friendship romance and mega action treat. It's not just a treat, it's a buffet of desserts in front of you. Watch the trailer, get hyped on it. I'm going to say, once you've watched this, once you watch RRR, go check out those Bahubali movies, or go watch them now. They're on Netflix. Check out the movie War, another friendship love story action movie. If you're further interested in investigating more Indian action cinema, Google Tiger Shroff and just watch that guy's movies. Like, there is a world of original creation action cinema out there that I think can serve as an antidote to your doldrums, perhaps tedium or burnout that you've experienced. Tuck in with a movie like Suryavanshi, which came out at the end of last year, which will also ring all of these aforementioned bells I've been talking about for you. But yeah, let's celebrate international cinema. Let's celebrate big ideas. Let's celebrate ideas that will feel new in a landscape of blockbuster fare that can feel a bit homogenous at times. Sometimes I lead you to little to little up-and-coming movies like The Wonderful, The Novice, or nice little like low to mid-budget indie art house A24 stuff like X. But right now, I'm telling you to go watch the most bombastic movie you might see in 2022. Have your life changed, like the friend I went with to the theater last night, whose blood was like simmering out of his body by the time we left. Rise, Roar, Revolt. Join the revolution. Join me with Triple R. And join me for more Feeling Seen in the future, because that's our show for today. You can follow us on Twitter at Feeling Seen Pod, or you can join our Facebook group at www.facebook.com/groups/feelingseenpod, and you can also send us an email at feelingseen@maximumfun.org. If you want to follow me on Twitter, I am Jorcru, which is JORCRU. Our theme music is by Andrew Epen. The show is produced by Marissa Flaxbart. Our senior producers are Kevin Ferguson and Laura Swisher, and this is a production of Maximum Fun.
MaximumFun.org.
Comedy and culture.
Artist owned.
Audience supported.